Travis Wayne Goodsell. In 2008, I filed a petition for redress of grievances with the state of Utah. I did not know that it was a crime to do so in the state of Utah. And so, under the orders of Vernice Treese, I was disappeared into a concentration camp here in Utah for 6 years of my life. All because I wanted the church in the state of Utah, ordered by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to leave me alone. That ever since I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, I was under attack to be destroyed. And I had had enough in 2008. They had destroyed my family. They had destroyed my living. And were plotting to render me homeless, to thus take away all my property, thus my research on Paleo-Hebrew, and have me murdered, tortured before murdered. You see that in Moroni chapter 9 as a tactic of the Lamanites, that when they took Nephites hostage, they murdered the husbands and fathers and fed their flesh to their wives and children. And then the girls were raped, tortured, then murdered, and then eaten as a token of bravery. Moroni 9, verses 8 through 10. And then the author collapses and says, "Oh, my beloved son, how can a people like this, that are without civilization," and it had only been a few years when they were civil and delightsome, that they could delight in so much abomination. And so, yes, over the 6 years, I too was tortured in a slow death. That was the intention, I was to be tortured unto death in the secret concentration camp here in Utah. Signed by Judge Vernice Treese. So when I miraculously got out, much to everybody's shock and horror, in 2014, my parents were scared by being notified because of their betrayal of me as well in 2008, as they participated in the erasing of me from history, throwing away all my stuff. Yet my mom was the one responsible for saving one binder out of the dozens that I had. And so any of my childhood pictures come from that one binder that she preserved. And during that 6 years of torture, as she continued, because of what the state of Utah had been ordered to do by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who rewarded financially those who did that to me. I've got the receipt, the actual receipt, not the new MAGA receipt. We've got receipts! Oh, show us. Oh, well, we don't actually have, yeah. Stop making new definitions for words. I got real receipts. Don't use the modern alternate definition for what I talk about. Nonetheless, notwithstanding, my mom, even though she fulfilled prophecy of her name and betrayed me, Judith, Judy, Judah, Judas, which goes back to Esau from the Genesis author. And even though she betrayed me, even though she lied to have me disappeared and tortured unto death, she nonetheless couldn't tolerate hearing about me being tortured, and had pled on my behalf to ease the torture of me. And so afterward, that continued, as she now knew that I was out in society. Oh no, Travis is loose on society, we're all doomed. Yeah, well, that's when the latter days started. Perry, Packer, Scott, bye-bye, remember? You haven't been following me, so you don't know. They still were hearing about the tortures of the church, but they were trying to still torture me unto death with my freedom. The favorite tactic of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has always been, and always will be, poisoning. That has been their favorite torture weapon because of its cruel and inhumanity that it is. A chemical, even biological poisoning for warfare. Church loves that. That's why they have apostles who are medical doctors. Just as the Danites did. And the church had had enough of me after suing them in 2020. Being denied soon, yet again. Even though it was in the federal courts this time. And so, yes, they were going to again destroy my life after I had been trying to rebuild it from what they had caused. And yes, they resumed poisoning to do the torture. And so, to prevent me, as they thought, of defaulting back to my parents' place, I've already learned that they betrayed me. I am not going back. But nonetheless, evil people are stupid. They assassinated my mother. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints ordered the assassination of my mother and financially rewarded those responsible for carrying out the orders. I have the receipts. They have the receipts. They know who they are. They assassinated my own mother to ensure that nobody would step up and defend me, to plead my cause, to save me from the torture unto death that this church was plotting. It is a sad reality that people, even Mormons, can tolerate a certain level of lies or abuse from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Back in the day, I can't remember which year it was, 2018, 19, a YouTube creator from England tried to reach out to have me be interviewed to expose the lies of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And with some cyber terrorist attacks, I was unable to be interviewed. And he then kept listening to videos that I posted about the criminal behavior of the church. And he did not want to interview me anymore. He just wanted to hear about how the church lies. And that was it. He didn't want to hear about the church committing actual crimes and murders and those kinds of stuff, let alone conspiracies to overthrow the government. And the same thing with Mormons, I noticed. Even Expo never knows that you guys stay away from my videos that talk about the evils of this church. Whereas if I talk about, church lied, oh, hilarious, yeah, we got them. Yeah, we got the church. Good job, Travis. But then when I start talking about how the church is involved with murder, coup, rape of little kids, all of a sudden everybody runs away and hides. No, that's going too far, Travis. Going too far. We can't handle that. Well, it's reality. I've got the financial receipts of the abuse, whether you accept it or not. So, likewise, the guy who was the bishop who got excommunicated because he asked the presidency of the church to have a list of questions for children rather than having bishops get sexually graphic in detail with children in the interviews. The church said no and excommunicated him. So then he started Protect LDS Children, and he still has the website. But that's all it was. He just wanted the church to have a list of questions for kids and not go beyond that, just like for adults. That was it. That simple. And the church excommunicated him because the church tortures children, sexually abuses children. Even in the For Strength of Youth pamphlet that I went over with you yesterday, one of the other issues in that pamphlet is that they say that our bodies are sacred because they're in the image of God, referring to Heavenly Father. As a Mormon, even if you were Mormon and no longer are, do you understand what the church pulled by saying we are in the image of God? What makes us different than Christians? Among the many, is that we, as Mormons believe in a heavenly mother. And yet, just like my mom, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have assassinated Heavenly Mother. She is not mentioned by this church. We have the one hymn that says that tells us we have a mother in heaven. Is it, if you can hide a colon? It's been 15 minutes, haven't been, well, there was prior to, and obviously last night, during my journal vlog, it missed my video because that's when the church's presentation of the priesthood was going on. And so I know it's a Mormon who is attacking me. They think that they're hiding behind the computer, but your patterns of behavior reveal who you are. I've a mother there, LDS, him. Oh, my father. Yeah. The thought makes reason stare. Truth is reason. Truth eternal tells me I've a mother there. And that's it. That's as far as the church will go. Relief Society has rebelled over the generations. To let the women know, at least, that they are in the image of Heavenly Mother. But then the church goes and then says it's porn. Our bodies are sacred, that's why they're porn. Cover them up and hide them. They're so sacred, hide them. But yeah, in so doing, they have assassinated Heavenly Mother because they want Christians to be tricked into joining the church. They want Islamists to be tricked into joining the church. They don't believe in Heavenly Mother. We can't convert people who don't believe prior to when we ask them to read, ponder, and pray and get the right feeling. If we're telling them something that they already don't believe is true, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. So missionaries have to be very vague, very general, and lie in order to get baptisms into this church. And then once the baptisms take place, then gotcha. You never leave the church. You can convert anytime you like, but you can never leave. Welcome to the Hotel Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Such a lovely place. Should we? Should we? See, they had problems with YouTube not wanting their material on YouTube, but then I noticed a couple of years ago they started putting stuff on. And at first, it was weird. You couldn't, they had it, but when you clicked on it, it disappeared. It was weird. I didn't understand it. And then finally, I think they've got a channel with videos on them now, but they specifically made certain videos for YouTube under whatever contract agreement they had made with YouTube. But still, I mean, dear God. YouTube has never gotten it right the whole time. And they've always gone into reaction mode over their failed system. But anyway, we aren't going to get into that. And so it is sad that the church can't be honest with Mormons because they're covering up and hiding their crimes. that they are lying in wait for Trump to cause Armageddon and destroy Mormons from the face of the earth, and thus have cause to destroy Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon, so that they can rise up with the doctrines of Lucifer in full display. So says Albert Pike, as the church's plot of the Danites confirmed. But the use of sacrificing children, sacrificing women as a war strategy has always been the Danites' way. The Danites in 1838 caused the war, and then framed and blamed Joseph Smith. And by doing that, everybody assumed that they were telling the truth, that Joseph Smith is behind the Danites. And so every Mormon became the enemy, not just the true Danite Mormons, as they called themselves by Thomas B. Marsh, who said that. And then you have the Hans Mill Massacre as a result, where Mormon women and children are slaughtered rather than the Danites. This is what the Danites' tactic was. They caused the problem and got other Mormons to be murdered to take the fall for what they, the Danites, caused. So then the Danites can then step forward and say, see, we have to defend ourselves. They're attacking women and children. See, Governor Boggs has an extermination order against all Mormons. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints hides behind religion, with women and children being used as the sacrificial pawns to get away with their crimes, to get away with their plot to cause the threefold mission of the true Mormons: mass extermination, theft, and coup, and blame Jesus for it. And so, to wrap it up, because this is just a quick video, this is Trump Ice 2025, Armageddon 2, Civil War 2 against Mormons. There are Mormons in Los Angeles. There are Mormons around the United States. There are Mormons around the world. And the church isn't protecting any of us. They were required in Joseph Smith's doctrine covenants to have a bishop's storehouse for every single bishop and his ward. In every stake, you have up to 8 wards. Every bishop is supposed to have a storehouse. So every stake has 8 storehouses. Now, back in my lockup, I had designed the Zion storehouse, which I then published a current situation compromise to prepare Mormons for Zion by having every bishop have a storehouse, every stake have a stake storehouse that supplies the bishop's storehouse. And then you get a number of stakes, which is a temple region, as currently set up by the church, that a temple district then has a bishop's storehouse to supply the stakes. And then so on and so on until eventually the church's headquarters has the main storehouse that supplies all the way down to the bishop's storehouses. But each membership of a ward would be the suppliers of their storehouse. That's the way Joseph Smith had originally set it up. And so I was just continuing on with Joseph Smith's method of economy for the church. But the church doesn't do that. The church has minimal amount of storehouses compared to the number of wards in the church. And so when a natural disaster or economic hardship strikes a city, strikes a state, province, country, the Mormons suffer along with everybody else. Church only gives a token to truckloads of food. And then the church news always talks about how the church is so awesome because we gave to a corporation claiming to be charitable, for which we always hear in the news that the people never get the supplies that they needed. Because the people in charge of the charities are the ones who need to get paid. That's why they did the charity, so that they could get paid. So every Christmas you get those charities coming up and saying, oh, look at these poor animals, look at these poor people from Africa, these children. Give us money. Don't let them die. You're to blame if you don't give us money. Well, you're just paying their paychecks and their lifestyle. And yeah, they may do some token stuff with a minimal amount of the money you gave them, but the rest is to fund their lifestyle. And that's the church. Church does that same practice. Every money you give to the church, they do the same thing. They give a minimal amount from what you gave, never from what they have, to give an appearance of charity when they're not. And so the church is deceiving everybody into thinking that they are helping women, helping children, helping the disabled, helping the poor, helping the sick. And they're not. It's a big con to have you pay the church more money, to have nations make business deals with the church, even if that business deal is so that the church can be recognized in the nation, so that missionaries can be sent and then recruit people to pay the church. And it's sad that the church has to have a massive protest to stop doing what they're doing, as that bishop was able to get the change because of the mass numbers of people who were sexually abused by this church, by the bishops, by the primary teachers, by other priesthood leaders in this church, turning the children into weapons against each other sexually, so that when we get married, our spouse abuses us sexually, even if the spouse believes that they are not sexually abusing you, that you are the sexual abuser and they're just trying to have you repent. Just sick and wrong. And so the coverage of the wars of Ukraine and Israel, both are victims, but the news won't report it ever the same. we learned of the initial horrors, both against Ukraine and Israel, that Russia pretty much did exactly what Moroni 9 describes to the Ukrainian women and children, with the mass graves laced with landmine bombs as a trap. And knowing that Putin will never get justice for being held accountable for what he did. And then the torture unto death after raping the Israeli prisoners by Hamas. And despite the news coverage of this, despite the hostages still by Hamas to this day, that the news still can't cover Israel's attack, being attacked, the same as Ukraine being attacked. Because Ukraine, when Russia came in, Ukraine protected their women and children and had them flee to the borders to be taken in by their neighboring countries. We even have some here in Utah, because we have Ukrainians here in Utah. And so the United States took in some Ukrainians as a result. And I don't know if Alyssa is one of them. What the hell, girl? Why can't you stay put? You know we're worried about you. God. Or if she's a Russian. They use the same script. It just has a different accent for whether it's Ukrainian or Russian. Nonetheless, you know, it's like being a Utah versus Arizona Mormon or an Idaho Mormon. It's a different accent, especially a California Mormon. Different accent. And a Canadian Mormon, oh dear God, eh? What language are you speaking? What is a? Sorry. And so I am disgusted with the world, not just the world press, that keeps blaming Israel for being forced to take out the Islamic women and children who are put purposely on the front lines to die, so that the world will give sympathy to Islam and demand that Israel stop and leave them alone, while they still have hostages, even though those hostages could be dead, that the women were raped, that they were all tortured. Well, the news doesn't want to cover that anymore. It's all about, can't Israel just cease fire and stop fighting? Leave the poor children and women alone. They're starving. We need to get the aid in. And you don't get it. They are purposely betrayed by their own to gain sympathy, a false sympathy from the world. A deceptive tactic that has always been used by Islam, to use women and children as the shields for Islam to commit their terrorism, their abuses and their torture. And so these women and children are protecting Hamas, who are still holding hostages, who still won't stop and leave Israel alone. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's just awful. But in Ukraine, yeah. Those in Ukraine are those who chose to stay and fight. The rest got out. Millions fled. But Islam? Nope. And this is what the news isn't smart enough to cover, or good enough to report correctly. Is that what the hell are the children doing in a war zone anyway? Why do the aid organizations have to go into the war zone? We all know from watching MASH that even the medical doctors did not go into the medical or into the war zone. They had the choppers that went in, pulled the wounded bodies out to take them to the MASH unit. They don't do that in Gaza. The hospitals are protecting Hamas, using the wounded and the women and children as the shields to protect Hamas, who are still holding hostages. And they claim that they're the victims, when Israel is trying to get their people back, to end the terrorism of Islam once and for all, so that Israel can survive and be left alone. Nobody gets that. And Saul Albert Pike is right. The two will fight to exterminate each other, as Christianity will be utterly decimated by the failure of Jesus to show. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints successfully destroying Mormonism, destroying the Book of Mormon, destroying Joseph Smith, sacrificing women and children, will then be able to have their full doctrine of Lucifer to enslave mankind who survived. And I say these things